Hello, good morning. Welcome to Instant Moin. I'm very happy to be here with Timon. Timon is right. This is the right pronunciation.
Yes, Timon, okay. That's right.
Cool. And you are part of the development team behind Dying Light 2, Stay Human, and we're here to discuss the game and also the upcoming DLC that is right around the corner. And we'll mix things up a bit. How I've learned. But before we start to talk about the game, maybe you can give us a brief introduction to yourself.
Okay, so guten Morgen, moin, right?
Hi, morning. Hi.
My name is Timon Smektawa. I am with Techland for almost a decade now, which is quite a long time. I have joined the company when we were working on Dying Light 1, and has been a part of the team for about 3 years before the game was released. Then I was the lead game designer on Dying Light the following, the big addition to the original game. Then I became a lead game designer for Dying Light 2, and I was leading the team of designers working on that game. And recently, about a month ago, I became a Dying Light franchise director, which is a big name, but it means that I'm responsible for all of the creative development decisions that we are taking with the game and what will happen with Dying Light as a brand, as an IP, as a series in the future. Currently, my biggest focus is Bloody Ties, Dying Light 2 Bloody Ties, which is the first DLC to the game, the first paid DLC, the first narrative DLC that we are releasing for the game about 6 months after its release. But of course, we are already working on some future stuff, which maybe I will be able to reveal a little bit about on this podcast. So once again, hello to every listener. I hope you will have a good time listening to our conversation.
Yeah, super cool. Thank you very much for this introduction. Let me first say that Dying Light, the first one and also the second one, are two of the most unique zombie-related games I've seen over the past years, which is something really cool and also really hard to achieve, to be honest, because there's plenty of games surrounding the topic of zombies. And also we have, of course, a lot of TV series like, I don't know, Walking Dead and stuff. And zombies are around for a very long time, since the 70s in cinema. So to come up with something that is kind of unique and that's something new, sorry, is kind of difficult, to be honest. And you somehow managed to pull it off, which is really, really cool. And I think most, we talked about the games in the context of the podcast and review-wise, and we were really fond of both games because they have this unique atmosphere and this unique mix of parkour and the management of social relationships and so on. This is something we really liked when we played the games. And coming into this, so my first question would be, how did you come up with the parkour stuff in the first place? This is something I only knew parkour from games like Mirror's Edge, for example. But what was the idea behind incorporating this in the world of of Dying Light?
So unfortunately, I wasn't in the studio. I wasn't in the office. I wasn't a part of the team even when this exact thing happened. I would love to be, because that must have been a magical moment. But actually, I think it wasn't a moment per se. I think what happened was that, and I actually know this because I'm close friends with the senior gameplay programmer, actually currently a gameplay director at Techland, and our chief creative officer. So the gameplay programmer is his nickname is Głowa, the chief creative officer, his nickname is Pyza, and those two gentlemen, they also worked on our first zombie game, which was Dead Island. And as they were, after the release of Dead Island, they were testing, and actually it was a little bit before the release of Dead Island even. They were testing the game, they were having fun with it, and then they realized that the only thing they can do when they're facing the zombies in Dead Island, they could just basically bash them on their heads with a hammer or a similar tool. But quite often they felt the need to escape from them. And that's how it was born. They started thinking, okay, so what can we do to give player that additional option? What can we do to make sure that players have something to do aside from dying and respawning when the situations get really heated. And they come up with the idea of parkour. It was all I believe in around 2010-ish, 2011, so some time ago. And actually parkour was quite big back then as something that started appearing in various medias, not only games but also movies. Like for example the movies David Bell was starring in, or the movie, or for example Yamakasi. So they it was just like a sprinkle of imagination, of invention, and they started developing this. There was it didn't start instantly. It was actually quite a long process. What happened first, and I actually played and saw that prototype, is that Głowa, the programmer, he did a prototype of parkouring in Dead Island. And in Dead Island, how it worked was that he just put like a specific helpers, elements, objects in the environment on which you could climb. Something similar to what Far Cry is doing recently. So we had it back then, but there was something missing. And what the guys felt, they felt that it's okay. It creates the emotion, the ability to escape, but didn't create the emotion that this is really an option that I can use everywhere. Because if you put specific objects in the environment on which you can climb, then the player is limited to just those objects, just those pieces of geometry. So what they started doing is they started adding more and more of those objects, but then it became very difficult on the performance side. The full map was filled with like bits and pieces which had to be placed manually so player could climb over it. It created a lot of problems. For example, there was a building with a rooftop, and someone placed like those ledges, climbable ledges on the rooftop. But then the next day a level artist came in and he put an antenna in front of one of those places. So then you want to climb, you don't really see what's up there because you're below. You start climbing and then you hit an antenna on the top of the rooftop. So and it was of course just one of the many problems they encountered. So Głowa started like thinking in his head. Actually, Głowa in Polish means head, so we always joke with him about it. And he started thinking in his head, in his Głowa, and he came up with the idea that actually we don't need the helpers, the objects that you can climb. He can just create a code which analyzes the geometry in front of the player and allows player to grab the pieces of geometry that fit his physique, his size, etc. And he started developing this. Of course, it wasn't easy. There's actually, I think it's also on YouTube. And if anyone is interested in game design and game development, and especially in creating parkour in FPP, I think they should look. I think Głowa's GDC talk is available on YouTube.
Nice.
His name is Bartosz Kulon. The real name is Kulon. So I think if you look it on the internet, you should be able to find it. It's a great talk which in details explains the whole process. And so this is how it started, as they say in the trendy memes right now. And this is how it's going, and it's going very well for us because Dying Light is a tremendous success. We have reached more than 5 million players already within the first week. So it started slowly. It started as a process. It started with a lot of challenges that we had to solve and face. But we managed to create as you mentioned, a very unique blend of zombies and the survival aspect, but also giving players the ability to use parkour. And it's not the only element that makes Dying Light unique, because on the gameplay side, Dying Light is defined by 3 gameplay pillars. The first one is parkour, natural movement system, as we call it. The other one is first-person melee combat. Again, something that's not really popular in games. Like, of course, there are games which are based on melee combat, but like maybe 90% of those games is TPP games, where it's easier to present the swings, the range of weapons, way more easier than in FPP. So it's parkour, it's melee combat, first-person melee combat, and then the third pillar of Dying Light is the day and night cycle, which changes how the game plays, which basically gives you almost 2 games in one.
Yeah, which is really cool, because thinking about the aspects when it comes to zombies, first off, of course, your zombies are fast.
Yes.
This is really one of the most important differences when it comes to other games. In most, not in all games, but in most games, zombies were these slow moving creatures, and it's actually really hard to pull off slow moving dangerous zombies. I think in the recent Resident Evil remakes, they pulled it off somehow, that these zombies are still dangerous to you, but in most cases, these are slow moving. And you mentioned that island. That island had the same thing. So were really slow moving creatures, and the only danger that came when you were surrounded by them. And this was. But basically, when you face one or two of the zombies, that's basically practically no big problem for you. And you change this in Dying Light as in a big way. So parkour makes total sense, because to survive in this world, to be able to go outside of safe places and go to roam the streets and jump over rooftops and so on, you have to be able to do all these parkour moves. So it makes sense in this apocalyptic world to have this kind of movement. So sometimes there are games who force in these special features, and they're like, hey, this is something really cool you can do, but it doesn't make sense in this kind of world. But you manage to build a world and to make something unique, which also fits the narration of the game. And you were like, okay, this kind of makes sense to have a character like this. So this is something that's really cool. But the when it comes to the melee combat, this is also something very unique, because not a lot of horror games do this. So that the only kind of thing that comes to mind is something like Condemned. Maybe you recall the game.
Of course. It was one of the references for us when we were working on the melee combat system.
Okay, that's interesting, because this is something a lot of people for sure were wondering if this is a huge inspiration, because this is the only first-person combat game in the horror genre I recall when it comes to melee combat. But you kind of extended it a lot. So, is there how did this develop? Did you start with practically the same point from Dead Island, and then you're like, okay, we need more movement, we need more stuff to add in, like slide moves, for example, or stump moves?
Yeah, so definitely it is an evolution, and for a very long time, like a long time ago, Techland decided that we want to do first-person games, and we started focusing on this. We have created our own technology with this in mind. We have started hiring people who also believe that first-person perspective is the most immersive perspective that can be, is the way to go if you want to put players into your world and make them feel that they are really a part of it. So we focused on this, and we just keep developing the internal experience, knowledge, solutions, tech solutions for this. So it is a long process, and it's kind of hard to say like how it started exactly and what were the milestones along the way. So we started with Dead Island because Dead Island was different game in a way that it was way more stationary for the main character. It was, you couldn't run that much, you couldn't jump that much, so you were almost like this tank that was moving in the area. So we focused, and it was actually a good thing for us, because we were able to focus on the most important action for the player, which was the act of attacking an enemy, defending against an enemy, while being this tank that fights with the hordes around him. Then when we started working on Dying Light, we had this foundation, and then we could develop it by connecting it more with the increased mobility of the main character that we have introduced. So again, this was a step in evolution for us. And then in the second game, we have realized that actually in the first game we didn't achieve one of our goals, and one of our goals was to create a system which would allow players to very seamlessly connect parkour and combat moves. And we, by looking how people were playing in Dying Light, we realized that it wasn't really like that. What happened was that people were running and parkouring to the city, then encountering enemies, fighting with them very similarly to what they did in Dead Island, and then they started running again. So it was like run, stop, fight, run, stop, fight, run, stop, fight. We wanted to connect those two elements of our gameplay a little bit more. That's why Dying Light 2 introduces a system that's called parkour combat, which allows you to more seamlessly, more easily connect those moves together, connect parkour moves and use parkour moves as a part of the combat loop. So it is an evolution, definitely. You can see traces of it. Actually, you can see traces of the Dying in Dying Light 2 for sure. We're not ashamed of this. We're just using the best practices, the best knowledge, the best experiences that we got while working on that game. But this also means that we had to do some sacrifices and we had to make some turns at specific parts of the development. So perhaps you remember that in Dead Island we had a system which I believe it was called analog fighting or something. Like it wasn't like the name wasn't really that flashy, but actually the system was quite flashy and interesting because it allowed you to have a full control over the trajectory of the swings of your weapon. But this could work only in the situation where the player was standing and you could focus on making the correct swings. But then in Dying Light, when we also wanted to have this, we realized that keeping this is not longer possible because player also has to move a lot during the fights.
Yeah.
So it was just too much. And like actually we weren't able, even by ourselves, it was for us very difficult to control both the character and the weapon swings at the same time. It is basically like making circles in like brushing your teeth to the left and like doing something else in a different direction. So this is the sacrifice we had to take to leave that system in the Island and move in a different direction, more mobile direction, more agile direction with Dying Light and Dying Light 2.
I think something when it comes to this aspect that it really pulled off quite well. It's interesting that you give the player a kind of body awareness. So you have the feeling that you're actually controlling a physical body, which is not something that a lot of first-person games do, and which I think is also really hard to pull off. So this, what do you think about it? So do you have of course, there's some stuff that is kind of obvious. So you never leave your body outside of cutscenes. Of course, this is the stuff that makes narration stuff and so on. And camera moves around, characters talk to you and so on. This is something we have seen in other games. But I think what is really remarkable is that when you have gameplay, you just mentioned that you kind of wanted to have the goal that the player is able to move around, to be very agile and mobile, but at the same time also can run and use combat and intervene these two elements so that they are not separated. And I think it kind of feels like it. But what about was this hard to achieve to still have your own feet, your own body, and also the weight of your own body in it? When you play with Dying Light, you have this kind feeling of momentum that there is that certain moves take some time. So a swing of a weapon, a melee weapon, for example, takes some time before it's finished. But somehow you can still calculate what happens next, what happens after the swing. So it's like in the fighting game, maybe that you can foreshadow what is happening next. Was this hard to achieve? So how did you balance this out?
Oh, first of all, it's extremely broad question. It's very hard to give a quick and focused answer on it.
I'm sorry.
No. I am sorry because I'm having a hard time to put something together because there are a lot of like thoughts running through my head. But like when it comes to solution, how this was achieved, there's no easy answer because it's a work of a huge team of people, the animators, the programmers that have spent really a lot of time, basically like years of development to make sure that this happens, experimenting with different settings, playtesting those different settings, looking at different references, like even, I don't know, combat or parkour movies recorded with GoPro cameras. But I think the important thing to say here is that we have made this as our goal. Our goal was to create, as I said before, a game which immerses you as much as possible, which puts you in the shoes of a guy who's trapped inside a zombie infected city surrounded by hordes of the zombies, and we want you to feel this, that you are there, that you are this person in this situation. So by deciding this, we knew that this should be our focus, and then we have put a lot of resources, a lot of tech solutions to make sure that this is achievable. And to be honest, we still don't feel that we have reached the golden state we would like to be in. We still feel that we have a lot of work in front of us to do. Of course, the tech will be developing. This will give us more options. But my dream is that one day you could say that Dying Light is this like almost the ultimate zombie playground where you can just step in and feel that you are there, and any action that you do gets some kind of a response from the game, and any action that you do makes you feel that this is basically almost you doing all of that stuff. I would love, for example, to not only I would like to see that kind of experience in the future for Dying Light, but I think it would be also mind-blowing to have this on VR. The only thing is that actually Dying Light is a game with too much agility and too much mobility to work with with VR, because the biggest problem with VR that people are having is that their body feels they're sitting, but their mind, because it recepts everything that's in those goggles, their mind feels it's moving, and this is separated. That of course depends on the person, but it's a very uncomfortable feeling for most of people on planet Earth. So we either find some new customers for our games, so new players outside of our planet, or we just will not be able to create the VR like a real full Dying Light experience in VR, which doesn't mean that at some point some VR experiment in the world of Dying Light 2 will not happen, because this I believe there's a lot of potential there. It just can't be a game where you control how you run, and you run with the same speed, with the same dynamism as you do in our base games, because in VR it's just motion sickness, like instant motion sickness,
especially with the quick movements. And there's also another aspect. I'm actually afraid of heights in real life, and you have a lot of climbing to do in Dying Light. And some of the best scenes in Dying Light 2 is when you climb rooftops or one of the very high buildings and look over the city. But imagine having this in VR. It's kind of how should I say it? It's really intimidating.
Actually, we have managed to. We had a build of Dying Light 1 running on Oculus, and it was really something else. It was really mind blowing. Well, we didn't spend too much time on it because the initial tests showed us that there will be the problems that I mentioned, but even without much polishing, even without much work on the performance side, the experience was really like something else. And I am a person that's lucky enough to not feel the motion sickness that much. I am a person that's not affected by it almost at all. I have managed to spend like 2-3 hours straight playing different VR experiences, and I never had a problem with this. So I also didn't have that much of a problem with Dying Light. It wasn't bad for me at all, thankfully. But I know that actually I'm in the minority. Majority of players has problems. So, but it was really something. Like, it was really a different thing. It was really a different type of experience. And I think generally Dying Light is as a series, one of the more subtle elements that define the series is that you are trapped inside a city surrounded by the zombies, by the infected. And when you put the goggles on, you increase the feeling of being trapped 100 times, because you are actually kind of trapped in those goggles. You're cut from the outside world, the same as the city of Haran, the same as the city of Villedor. And this really increases and makes the experience that much stronger.
Yeah, I think that VR version would be something I guess a lot of people were thinking about when they saw the game. Maybe There are some people who also try to do a VR mod or something, but this would be interesting to experience in a first person, especially when it comes to the feeling of isolation, which leads me to the next question. I think the game world is super, super interesting. So we now have seen a lot of different zombie scenarios over time, right? So we have all kinds of apocalyptic visions of how a zombie apocalypse might look like. We have we have stuff like World War Z, where it's more action focused. We have stuff that's more silent, like from the earlier movies, and we have also the more horror related stuff like Resident Evil or something. Really depends. There's all kinds of different variations, but you chose something very interesting. You really focus on people.
Mm-hmm.
And your tagline of Dying Light 2 is stay human, but it not only relates to the zombie infection, and also not to get bitten by zombies and stuff, the infection stuff, but also when it comes to the social relationships between people. And I think this is something that makes the game very special, is that you realize over time that people are even more dangerous than zombies. Would you agree?
It was a conscious decision on our side because first of all we wanted Dying Light 2 to be a little bit more mature, to be able to tell some stories that perhaps weren't possible in the first game. And the other thing is that actually personally I don't agree with this statement that much, but when we were releasing Dying Light 1, we heard very often people saying, oh, it's just another zombie game, there are so many zombie games. Personally, I don't agree with this because I think that actually there aren't that many zombie games. It's rather a niche genre. What we managed to do is we have managed to kind of show ourselves as one of the prime titles in the genre. But if you look at Steam, if you look at Xbox Live, if you look at PSN, I think there are more sports games, more shooter games, way more than actually zombie games. But we kind of felt this criticism, for lack of a better word. So we said yes, okay. So yes, okay. So yes, okay. So let's try to move in a slightly different direction. We also wanted to. The idea was that this will interest more players with our game. They like if we kind of hook them with the human stories, then if like we knew that the fans of the zombie genre will be just happy with Dying Light 2, but then we also knew that there will be players who might not play the game because they will say, oh, it's just another zombie game. So we thought that if we hook them a little bit if we interest them a little bit with the human side of of this world of the stories, then they might come in, and then maybe they will kind of accept the zombies. They will accept the infected. They will stop saying, "Oh, it's just another zombie game," because personally, I feel it isn't. And you also said it before that you feel it's unique, and I also feel that even if there are other titles in the genre, I still feel that Dying Light is unique in the like the genre that we are working with.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think the your focus on the human side makes total sense because it makes the world richer. So it's not just an empty city filled with zombies and you have to escape, but you still have dynamics between characters in it, and these characters also feel in a certain way about you and about the things that are happening in the city and so on. I think it really gives the world the world breathes because of this, because you have human characters in it that kind of reflect what's going on in this world. And this makes this is really something that doesn't happen in a lot of other zombie games. And most of the time you're just alone with the zombies, right? So also when talking about early games, I think you mentioned Dead Island more often. You really got the same feeling from Dead Island. So you have, of course, survivors, but you're walking around on the island like alone and don't interact that much with other people. And this is something you really fix with Dying Light. So this is really cool.
Okay, thank you.
So one question would be, I think something that's really cool about Dying Light 2 is the soundtrack.
Okay.
by Olivier de Rivière.
Uh-huh.
And I'm personally a huge fan of Olivier because his other soundtracks for Plague Tale and stuff, also his earlier works like Alone in the Dark and so on, is really something, also really something unique. And he mixes electronic sounds with orchestra sound, which really makes sense.
Yes.
But in this case, this is really interesting because he focuses a lot on dynamic music, right? So he really talks a lot about how to integrate dynamic music compositions into the gameplay and so on. And how was the process working with him on this? And also, what was the thought process behind this to get this kind of parkour feeling, this flow feeling of the music?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's the important thing to say is that Olivier, like, he stepped into our team. He's a person that works with different studios, so he's not a part of any studio. He's like almost, you could say, a freelancer. But I think this kind of undersells his involvement in the project because he's like the beloved uncle that comes to visit from time to time, and like when he's coming to visit you, everyone is happy and everyone is anticipating what he'll bring. So This is how the work with Olivier looked like. He at the same time as he was working with us, I think he did maybe one or two more soundtracks. I think the one for Plague, for sure, he started already working on while working on Dying Light. But he put like not 100%. He has put like 150% of his heart into the project. And he's really a very senior developer. He's a very experienced one, and he knows exactly what he wants to do, and he's able to basically step into the project and very quickly say what's needed, what kind of features he needs to have created for his music, and then deliver on the vision that he has in his head. Of course, the vision that he first works out with the creative director of the game. I very consciously said he's an experienced developer, not an experienced composer, because Olivier is way more than just a composer. He's not a person that just like sits on his piano and composes the soundtrack and gives it to the team and say, hey, this is your music, have fun with it.
Yeah.
He is a developer. He understands that games are a very unique medium, and that the games give you a way more control over what happens with the sounds and how the sounds interact with what player is doing, way more than in movies or any other like medium format. So he's not only composing the music, but he also comes up with the systems that make the music feel alive, make the music seems reactive to what player is doing. And this is a very unique skill that I believe not that many people on the planet have. So it was a real blessing that Olivier was able to come work with us. And aside from being this experienced developer, the person that has this quite unique skill in the scope of the whole planet, he's also a little bit crazy, because I think you need to be crazy. You need to be crazy if you come up with the idea that you want to create a new instrument from post-apocalyptic trash and leftovers, as he did for the music in Dying Light 2. So this was really I used the word a blessing, and I didn't say just to be nice. It was really a blessing that we were able to have such a talented, such a unique person, such a unique creative individual in our ranks. I'm very happy that I was able to meet him and befriend him. So he's really like, maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but if you are a game developer, if you're looking for someone that will really like increase the quality of the audio package of your game, then go to Olivier. Just make sure that you leave him some time so he can work with us again, because I'm sure we will get back to the cooperation.
Yeah, I think I totally agree, because I watched his work over the last years, and he worked on games like Plague Tale I mentioned, Alone in the Dark, Get Even, for example. Also,
yes.
I think it's also I think it's a Polish game, right?
Yes, it's a Polish game. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and this is really something where I recognize, okay, he is really working with the dynamic soundscape. He's most of the time, I think he mentioned on his Twitter account he's working with WWise and other dynamic sound systems to achieve this kind of dynamic sound mixing. And Get Even was one of the games where I really realized, okay, this is something super special, right?
Yes.
So I guess this is also something you looked at as a reference, and I was super impressed by this. This game was really hugely enhanced by the audio. I also feel the same with Dying Light, because there are some parkour games out there, but none of these games really had this dynamic soundtrack, and there's this feeling, if you keep on running over the rooftops, you have this beat to it, right? So there's this rhythm and this beat to it, and you get into the flow. And this is something, I think flow is one of the most important things when thinking about the parkour part of Dying Light. It's not just grabbing some interactive objects and you don't feel anything. It's like the audio really enhances the feeling of moving forward. And this is something that the soundtrack really achieves. Also mentioning the weird sounds into it. It's not just this classical orchestra sound you have in the background. It's basically not sounding like a typical film score. There's always sounds you're like thinking, what was it what instrument was this? What is this for? And what's the origin of the sound? And looking at the making offs regarding the soundtrack, it really is cool to see that he tries to invent new stuff and also explore new soundscapes, which makes sense in a post-apocalyptic world where a lot of instruments are destroyed and you maybe have to come up with something new. So yeah, really, really cool. And how do you change things up in the DLC would be the next question. So obviously we have established that Dying Light 1 and 2, and there's the following. People know about this, but there's a DLC coming up, and is there something you changed up for this one?
Yes, so definitely. Actually, with Bloody Ties, we are changing a lot, and this is like our. I don't want to say experiment, but it's definitely a diversion. This is something else that we wanted to do, something where we wanted to kind of take players away from the grim post-apocalyptic world that we have created, because I believe that if you feel the tense of survival, the tension of survival, if you feel the tension of being surrounded by zombie hordes, from time to time you just want to have some like lighter entertainment, and this is what it is. And we definitely wanted to try a lot of new things. So Bloody Ties, you could look at the Bloody Ties and say, hey, it's just a arena DLC. And in a way it is, but I think we have made a lot of things that make the arena format feels different, feels fresh, and feels I think better than what players couldn't anticipate if they just look at this and say, oh, it's just a set of challenges. So first of all, there's a big story that accompanies everything that happens in the DLC. You start the story in the open world of Villedor, you meet some characters there, and they kind of tell you and draw you into the Carnage Hall tournament, the big tournament that takes place in a separate location, separate map outside of the city of Villedor. You want to get there, you know that there's something that you should follow. I don't want to spoil the story that much. So first you have to qualify for the Carnage Hall tournament, complete some challenges, some tests, some gameplay sequences in the open world of Villedor. And then if you qualified, you can go there, you can step in, and you can participate in the tournament. The tournament itself, again, it's way more than just arenas that you can imagine. You just have one enemy after another, one enemy after another. It's not like that. Some of those challenges, some of those gameplay sequences, actually we call them shows, and some of those shows have a very interesting format. The format is that it's almost like this theater play where you are the main actor, but of course you are armed with a sword, with a machete, with an axe, with tools needed for survival because there are zombies everywhere around you.
Mhm.
And in that setting, you try to push the narrative of each of those theater plays forward. So one example is the Prince of Thieves, where you play Robin Hood, who tries to steal castle from sheriff's. Apologies, you want to steal gold from sheriff's castle.
Mhm.
So first you need to find a way how to get into the castle. Then you need to dispose of the guards. Then you need to find the gold. Then you need to load the gold to a cart. Then you need to push the cart outside of the castle. So there's like this almost mini narrative, mini story. It's constantly being commented by the commentator on the in the tournament. The audience cheers you, the audience boos you if you do something wrong. So it really is different. It's not just like killing. There's some intrigue, there's some additional objectives, there are some parkour sections. So it really is quite unique, and I really do hope that players will appreciate that. And on top of that, it's not only the initial story and the shows in the Carnage Hall tournament, because the main narrative continues happening as you play the DLC, as you play the shows. Then there are also additional side quests that you get to find and get from people that are in the place. The map itself is rather small, but there's this big building of the Carnage Hall tournament and some surroundings around. So you can also find some loot there, some enemies there, some hidden secrets there. There are also Easter eggs, and some of them are rather nice, and they relate to various things. Amongst them also the first game. So if you are our hardcore player from the first game, if you are the Harran survivor, then I think you will find some interesting bits and pieces there for you as well to discover. So the arena format is just like the spine of it, just the foundation of it, and we have built way more on top of it. I think it's rather unique. I'm really proud of what we have managed to achieve. I understand that there might be some players that will be a little bit surprised, maybe a little bit reluctant to play it, because they'll say, "Oh, I want my like hardcore survivor in the city." Things like that are also coming. Since the release of the game, we have added a lot of new content, free content, content that players didn't have to pay for to the base game. So I think this satisfies the survival aspect, the city survival aspect of the game. With Bloody Ties, we wanted to try something different, and I think with it, I understand that there will be players that will say, "Oh, this is not for me." Fine by me, fine by us. But I believe it's important to do something else, to do something different, to step outside of the box from time to time. So that's why we steered the DLC in that direction. And now we are keeping our fingers crossed, hoping that players will appreciate what we did, and at least that they will appreciate the originality and the uniqueness of it.
Yeah, so but the cool thing about the DLC is that I had a look at it yesterday very briefly, and it answers a very important question in this world: how does entertainment work in a post-apocalyptic zombie world? And the first impression I got is that it's heavily inspired by themes like Running Man, for example. You recall the movie? Of course, I'm sure you recall the movie Running Man. Our listeners, it's the Arnold Schwarzenegger movie with based on the Stephen King.
Of course, I know the movie. Of course,
yeah. Also, hope listeners remember it. It's a really cheesy movie, but they had a cool idea with this arena style stuff, and I think this is something. Was this their main inspiration for this going into this direction to have this entertainment, this bloody TV entertainment, so to speak, without being TV. So there's Running Man had this vision that television is like that in the future. Of course, we don't have television and Dying Light, but was this kind of a source of inspiration?
Definitely. when you are a game developer and when you are working on something, it's very hard to say what exactly was your inspiration, because everything is your inspiration. Like you can even go, I don't know, just walk on the streets and see something that inspires you, or maybe even see a random movie that has a scene that is an inspiration for you. So but of course, what you also want to do is you want to look at things in the entertainment industry, in the games industry, in the movie industry that are similar to what you're doing. So we also did this for Bloody Ties. We have seen movies like Running Man, the Mad Max with Thunderdome, but we have also looked at like Gladiator, for example. We have also looked at things like Rocky series, or even at some more mature and serious movies like The Wrestler. So with Mickey Rourke. So we looked at anything that we could to get inspired for this. And but one of the most unique inspirations for us was what Cirque du Soleil is doing. So it's this circus company that does those that kind of creates those very unique, very extravagant, very like high budget productions of circus shows. And this was really inspiring for us, because this is what they do. They take stories like we did with the Robin Hood, and they put like this stage circus spin on top of it. And we also got inspired by this. Also, one of our our chief creative officer is a huge fan of Cirque du Soleil, so he was constantly pointing us to some of the shows by Cirque du Soleil. And of course, we have also looked at things like the UFC, MMA galas, like where all those big sports events that are focusing on fighting sports. So the inspirations were numerous, but of course Running Man was also one of them.
Yeah, I think, but Cirque du Soleil is really a good, it's really interesting to reference it, because you kind of have the feeling that people who organize this arena and also the deadly sports or in the DSC, they really also try to make pushing everything to the more entertaining, fun side, right? So they're painting the walls in a very certain way. They use very specific lighting. They really reminded me also as well as to a circus somehow, but also it really is a contrast to the rest of the world around it. So entering the space, you kind of get the feeling you are in a very different place than the city around them. And it makes kind of sense, because people need this kind of distraction in this world. And so the colors are more extreme. The announcers are maybe more extreme. There's more, is way more over the top, this kind of blood sport. But it kind of makes sense in this world. So I think it totally fits. Dying Light world. So people might think, okay, this is not something I've seen in Dying Light before, but thinking about it, there's a certain place. Also, there's the second movie from the Train to Busan director, Peninsula, I think, where he also explores this kind of idea that people have this kind of blood sport, and it makes sense. You have no electricity, you have no TV, you have no games, you have no video games, you have no music. Music can, of course, be done by humans, but what is there to entertain people? And people are used to this violence in their world, right? So this is something they see it all around them. So you can step outside and can basically be beaten or eaten by some zombie or something. And this is something that makes sense in a way, that they have this kind of extreme kind of sports. And then there's the structure behind it you kind of explore in this DSC. So this is, I think it fits in a weird way.
Thank you.
So don't worry too much about it. So we have only a few minutes left for this interview.
Okay.
Just got a heads up that we will have to finish. So maybe there's one last question. So where to move next? Is there a side of the Dying Light world where I think like, okay, this is something we should explore? Because we had the following, for example, which moved outside the city walls, which was super interesting and super cool. And we have the dynamics and also the power dynamics of our characters inside the city. But what is there you think like, okay, this is a side of our game world we can still explore and enhance the universe of Dying Light? Is there something for the future?
Well, there's a lot for the future, and actually, we could make a whole 1 hour interview about this. If I could talk about this, though, I really can't that much because it is too early to excite players about what's coming. It is too early to create expectations because we are still working on some stuff, and until it's ready to be shown, then I don't want to spoil what we are thinking about. Also, because some things might change, so I don't want to then had to retrace what I said before. But definitely a lot is coming, and we have a lot of ideas how we can improve the experience and add to the experience. We have promised 5 years of support. So if you buy Dying Light 2 now, well, actually, if you bought it on the release day, we have promised that you will get 5 years of support, most of it free. So if you buy it now, it's still 4 years and what about 2 months, 4 months left. So the sooner you buy it, the more support you will get for your money. No, but jokes aside, there's a lot that's happening. We just before the holidays, we have started adding chapters, as we call them, chapters to our game, which is, as I said, free content, new objectives, new missions, new rewards for players, new cosmetic items that introduce those small groups or factions to the game. So we will definitely continue doing that. We also want to experiment with some type of content that we didn't before, which is mostly related to online experiences and drawing players more into playing together. There are also DLCs coming, and the second one is definitely it will be more open world-ish than DLC one. So if you are worried that we will don't do it, yes, we will do it actually, and there's more open world coming at some point. We have a story of how we want Dying Light to develop, also on the narrative side, created already, and we just need to follow that path and kind of take those characters and those locations to different places and eras and situations, let's say. So I think that's the thing I can say. Like there's a lot that will happen with Dying Light 2 over the next 5 years, almost. We know where we want the game to be in those 5 years, in 2027. This might sound like a sci-fi, but still the year is coming and Dying Light will be there, and we kind of know how we want the game to look and what we want the game to be by that time. So please keep your fingers crossed that we'll be able to achieve that. And but for now, I just want you, the players, the gamers, our community, to focus on Bloody Ties, because this is the biggest addition to the game that we have released so far. But the good stuff, the new stuff, is also coming quite soon. So basically, stay tuned and follow all of our social media channels, all of our interviews, like the one that we're having right now, for which I would like to thank once again, because we will be revealing more and more about what's coming. Definitely, we don't want to say what will happen too early. Yeah, because as I said, when things are in production, then they can always change, and I don't want players to tell us that we have changed something that we have promised. But when we are ready with revealing the next stages, the next phases of Dying Light 2 Saga, then we will make sure that you will hear that no matter where you are on the planet.
So this is something that doesn't works in the game industry quite so well when you announce something too early.
Yes.
People will nail you down on this, and this is something totally understandable. So it's a big city. Dying Light is placed in a huge city, so there's a lot of stories to tell in the city. So you get the sense that there's still some spots where, like, okay, this is something we can still explore. So I'm really looking forward what you have in store for us. And thank you, Timo. Thank you very much for this chat. Thank you very much for giving us a bit of insights into the development of the game. And I'm really, really looking forward what the future holds for the Dying Light franchise. And I'm kind of curious now about the VR version.
Like we can try to, like, if you are in Wrocław, our home city, then just let us know. Maybe we'll be able to hook up the station for you, so you can see how this worked.
Yeah, but I will only last for a minute or something before I get.
Maybe it will not be that bad. But I will use the opportunity to say that I would like to thank you for the invitation. It was a very nice Morgan conversation. So I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope your listeners also enjoyed it. Once again, thank you very much. Have a good day, and see you around.
Thank you very much, Timon. Goodbye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. And I will stop the recording.